Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers on this weekend before Thanksgiving, and hope you're making it a good one. So the holidays are here, and WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey will be with us with his winter outlook. He'll join us a little later, talk about that and some plans that we have around here in the weeks ahead. That's later, but first, a big change is coming in Georgetown, where Mayor Tom Prather has announced he will not be running for re-election. Prather has been mayor 15 years in total, including a term in the late 1980s and 2 recent terms. Over the years, Prather has devoted more than 40 years to public service, including tenures on the Georgetown City Council and the Scott County Fiscal Court. What does he see happening in the future in Kentucky's fastest growing city? What does he see local leaders around Kentucky facing in this time in which divisive national politics has found its way to the local level? So we'll have an interesting discussion with Mayor Prather, and it's good to have you with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Bill. It's great to be with you.
You were with me some months ago, and you talked about an agonizing decision about whether you would seek re-election. Why have you decided not to run for another term?
Bill, it was a tough decision, and I struggled with it for a long time. Surprisingly, I found that decision to be very emotional. I've just enjoyed so much the service to our community. But when I came back to office this last time, I said I would love to come back toward the end of my career for 1 or 2 terms and fix as many things as I possibly could. I've had those 2 terms. It's been a wonderful run. And I believe that 8 years might be the shelf life for a very active mayor. So I'm going to turn these reins over to someone else.
It's come with some sacrifice. You told me you haven't had a vacation in years.
Yeah, that's just an error in judgment on my part. But we get so caught up in these roles and responsibilities that I looked up and realized that in the 7 years I've been mayor, I have not taken a vacation. I intend to remedy that.
We know that this is a divisive time in the country right now. Some people look at almost everything through a political lens. To what extent has that made its way down to the local, supposedly nonpartisan governments?
It's become a very troubling trend, Bill. We see the intense partisan nature of politics that exist on the federal and state level becoming more and more prevalent in our local issues. I've always believed that local government is the place where we look for local solutions, not political solutions or party affiliated solutions, but just what's best for our local community. We're still trying to frame our conversations in that way. But the outside noise is getting harder and harder to overcome.
You know, our cities choose nonpartisan governments. They have a choice. They could be partisan. Most have chosen not to go that route. Is that a reminder to people to take a step back and look at things on the merit of the issue rather than what's being said by a political party somewhere?
I would hope that we can get back to that. When I became mayor the first time in my first tenure, Georgetown still had partisan primaries. And the result was a lot of people in Georgetown didn't get to vote in primaries. Back then, there weren't many registered Republicans. I felt that was very unfair, and I introduced the nonpartisan elections to Georgetown. I'm proud of that. We have state-level elected officials today from Scott County that are advocating our return to partisan politics. And I think that would be a terrible development.
Georgetown has been the fastest growing city in the state in recent years, and the growth has brought challenges. Obviously, you spoke with us a year and a half ago or so about public safety and water and sewer capacity. Can Georgetown keep up with the rate of growth?
I think we can, Bill, but we have to do it very carefully. The latest census now shows that Georgetown is the 6th largest city in Kentucky. We overtook Richmond. By 2025, given the growth trends, we'll overtake Covington as the 5th largest city in Kentucky. That growth gives tremendous responsibility to local leadership to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place, that we have the public safety measures in place, to maintain the quality of life that we have in Georgetown today. And can we maintain our growth? That's probably the biggest question that we face into the future. I believe that we can, but we have to do so very carefully.
You helped lure Toyota to town in the 1980s, and then you cooperated as they were getting set up and ready to go and hiring people and started the cars rolling off the assembly lines over there. How important has that relationship been over the years, and is it as good, and are the communication lines as open as they should be?
It's been an extremely positive relationship, Bill, for all these years. And I have to give Governor Martha Lane Collins credit for actually getting the plant here. We worked on helping say grace over it once it was here and to make it successful within our community. I think that 30 years later, this is not a startup. This is a mature production plant with mature expectations, and I'm sure Toyota Motor Corporation has very strong expectations for their largest production plant. So I think that the natural evolution of this plant from a startup into a mature plant, expectations change, relationships evolve, and we'll continue to work to make those positive.
Work recently stopped on a $50 million sewer treatment plant that is key to a lot of future development over there. I mean,
Yes.
it was supposed to come online, I think, 2025. There was talk of a school, maybe subdivisions, other retail development. Do you see that getting back on track soon?
We'll know very quickly. We began construction of this $50 million expansion of wastewater plant number 1. 6 months into the construction, Bill, we learned from our engineers, our contract engineers on the project, that some of the structural engineering calculations were incorrect. And it threw into doubt the strength of what has been built. So we have hired a forensic engineering firm that is doing a complete review of the plans and what has been built to see if we can move forward safely. This sewage treatment plant sits on the banks of the Elkhorn Creek, one of our most precious environmental resources, and we've got to do this correctly.
Your hope is that it's okay, right? Obviously. I mean, if not, what then?
If the consulting engineers come back and say we can take certain steps to pour additional layers of concrete, we can possibly make up our construction schedule and get back on track. If this requires a tear out and a rebuild, then we're looking at considerable more expense and a significant time delay.
Your local governments have a few options for revenue, especially the cities. The Kentucky League of Cities is pushing for more flexibility, but some lawmakers are very concerned that if they allow the local governments to make the local decisions, that it comes back on them for allowing that to happen, and that they would be blamed for raising taxes, even though that decision would be made at the local level. Do you see that impasse continuing?
I think cities are in a very difficult position today, Bill. The Kentucky Constitution gives very few opportunities for revenue. They're very restricted. The General Assembly has the ability to give us more revenue options. I hope that there is a trust factor that local leadership is competent enough and responsible enough to handle those opportunities in a reasonable way.
One thing is maybe moving the restaurant tax to more cities. Is Georgetown eligible for the restaurant tax?
We are eligible for the restaurant tax today, having been a fourth-class city in the past.
Yeah.
The real questions are, what might the uses of those funds be? And are they of true benefit to the city's general fund to help with public safety costs?
Right now they have to be directed at tourism.
At tourism, which is a very limiting factor for cities to consider.
You know, the Bluegrass region is centered on Lexington, with several very distinct communities around it. Georgetown, of course, being one of those with its own identity and traditions. But can the region function more effectively as the 500,000 people it is or so, and speak with a louder voice when it needs to have something to say? Or is that elusive as well?
It is a difficult challenge, but it is so important that we continue to try to achieve that, Bill, to try and speak with one voice as a region. We're very parochial in Central Kentucky, and we tend to stay in our communities, and we tend sometimes not to get to know each other well enough. We're more effective when we break out of those silos. We can look at the not-for-profit community and the model that they've given us for regional cooperation. We can do better.
COVID came along, the challenge of our lifetimes in many cases, and certainly for local governments. Are you proud of the way Georgetown handled that? Do you have some regrets about how COVID has been dealt with, the pandemic?
You know, I regret what the results have been of our COVID experience because we lost so much time and so much momentum. What I'm really proud of that we did in Georgetown and Scott County is we created a three-legged stool between the mayor's office, the county judge's executive's office, and Crystal Miller, who is the executive director of WKYT Health District. And we made decisions for city, county government based on public health. And we tried to work in concert with each other, give technical assistance to our businesses, help them find PPE, be a service provider if we could. And while I'm sure we didn't get it exactly right, we sure did try to get it right, and we'll continue to do that.
You have another year left in office, but as you look back in this term and maybe in your previous, do you have any regrets about how you've run the city of Georgetown?
Gosh, I think there are always opportunities to have done things better. And in retrospect, those are frequently easy to find. But our day-to-day effort to balance our economic opportunities and our quality of life, that's been a job we've taken up every day for 30 years. And I believe Georgetown has done it well.
Your location is both a great strength and a challenge, right? I mean, but being to some extent in the shadow of Lexington is a challenge, but at the same time it's an opportunity because a lot of folks live there and work here and back and forth.
Yeah, it should be enough positives in this between Fayette and Scott County to where we can do this very well. Cooperate. We work together on the South Sewer Line project. I'm very proud that we solved that environmental problem on the Scott-Fayette County line, and my hat's off to the Lexington Urban County Council for being our partner in that.
You never took the next step in politics. You've always stayed with local government. We noted City Council, Mayor of Georgetown, on the Scott County Fiscal Court, back to Mayor over those many years in service. There were a lot of people, I think, in Central Kentucky who were aware that you were a Center College graduate, that you had a business background and all of that public service. Many people thought, well, one of these days we'll see from Tom Prather, you know, he's running for something. You know, he's going to run for Congress or an office in Frankfurt or something. You never did that. Why?
I really enjoyed the local service, Bill, where it's up close and personal and you can make a very distinct difference. The other reason is I enjoy the nonpartisan environment of city government where we can make an effort to have good solutions and not partisan solutions. Frankly, the political rancor at the state and federal levels is something that never attracted me. I enjoyed working on the local level where I can try to work with everyone.
You have indicated that you will stay active even after you leave office, and you have an opportunity in this last year to maybe make some decisions without consequences. So what might you do in this last year in office and then thereafter?
Well, when I came to the office this time, Dan, 7 years ago, I did so with zero strings attached at that time. No job promises, no board appointment promises, no policy promises. And it was very liberating just to do what you think is right. I'm going to keep doing that for the next year. I have the good fortune to serve on the local central bank board. I'm on the local hospital board. I'll continue serving the community in those ways and continue to be active in Central Kentucky. I'm looking forward to it.
So we'll see you. You're not going to disappear.
I love Central Kentucky too much to disappear.
Do you anticipate that you will endorse a successor for mayor?
It is possible. No one has filed yet in Georgetown for mayor, but I anticipate that one or more of our city council members will file. And I very well may endorse one of those city council members if indeed he files.
So there we have I'm sure people in Georgetown know where you're going with that, right? So you're still talking, I guess? on that?
Yes, still waiting to see what that field looks like in its entirety. But we've begun important work that is not finished. And there's still stuff to be done on this agenda that we've been advancing. And I will be in favor of any candidate that wants to keep Georgetown moving forward in a real positive, productive way.
What are you proudest of in these years in office?
I think it would be good salaries for our police officers and firefighters. That would be number one. Number two, I think, would be the fact that Georgetown passed a fairness ordinance. And I think that's a very important symbolic signal about the type of welcoming community Georgetown is.
Mayor Prather, thanks for coming by. We appreciate it. We appreciate over the years you coming by, and hopefully we'll see you again before you wrap up your term, certainly. Appreciate it very much. Mayor Tom Prather from Georgetown, our guest today, and again, not running in 2022. All right, stay with us. WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey will talk about his winter outlook, and it may have some of us shivering in the weeks ahead. We'll have that in a moment. Welcome back now to Kentucky Newsmakers and WKYT Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey, known for his passion for the job and his particular interest in winter, as you probably know.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just around the corner now. We're
hard to believe, huh?
Thanksgiving week, here we go, and the holiday season. And Chris, last week, unveiled his outlook for the winter. And by the way, soon you'll be seeing more of Chris.
How about that? Are you ready for this?
We'll talk about that here in a little bit.
Reunited, and it feels so good, right?
We'll talk about that. Let's talk about this situation with the weather. I mean, you've got me thinking about chasing the coats and the shovels a little bit, huh?
I was thinking, Bill, I'm like the groundhog when it comes to an appearance on Newsmakers here. I come out once a year,
right,
and it's usually about this time of year. And if I see my shadow, you got a rough winter ahead. If I don't, things are better, right?
You usually scare everybody and you
right.
go back in your hole.
Exactly.
Right?
My Kroger stock goes up, Meyer, and all that stuff.
What's going on, though? We look like it'll be fairly tough.
Yeah, we're coming off of a winter last year, Bill, that was really harsh. We were much colder than normal. We had way above normal snow and obviously the devastating ice storms back in February. Now, what a lot of people don't want to hear potentially is that when I look at a forecast, what I like to do is look back at similar years. Mm-hmm. Take a look at this graphic. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. The forecast ingredients, Bill, the 2021 weather pattern. You know what the closest year has been to the actual weather of 21? Last year.
Really?
Last year and this year have been very, very similar. We had cold springs, if you recall, both years. We had freezes deep into the month of May. You had April snows. You had a tame summer. You've had above normal precipitation. The pattern really hasn't changed a whole lot over the past couple of years locally. Then I look at the overall globe, and we look toward the Pacific Ocean, where it's the biggest, baddest body of water on the planet, and it influences the weather across North America, and especially here in the United States. And there's a La Nina out there, and that just simply means the water near the equatorial Pacific is colder than normal. That's the second year in a row. Now, this is going to be a little weaker than last year, but last year was a La Nina as well. So that's another indication that 2020 pattern is similar to the one we've got going on this year. And I also look toward Greenland. You're thinking, what the heck are we doing heading into Greenland? Well, you get a big high pressure up into Greenland. A lot of times that dislodges cold air and blows it down into the United States. That is what I'm talking about with what is known as a negative NAO. That's up over Greenland. You wouldn't normally think that Greenland would influence the weather here across Kentucky, but Bill, what that does, forces that jet stream to take a big dip like you're seeing there with colder than normal temperatures.
Digs deep into the south,
It really does, and we saw that at times last year, and some of the worst winters that we've had in the past have featured that big block over Greenland. Now, you notice I say cold shots show up. I don't think that is the pattern for the entire winter, but as a matter of fact, here you go, Bill, across the country. I think the west averages a little warmer than normal, the east and south near normal, and we're going to likely be a little colder than normal. I don't think it's a brutally cold winter by any stretch of the imagination, but the average temperature should come in a little below. The December through February average for Lexington is roughly 37. That's the normal. Last year we were at 33.3, I believe, so we were quite a bit colder than normal, and I think that that continues
And
this
in
year.
precipitation, we always get some snow.
Oh, without question. So here you go, the winter forecast. The temps, we just talked about it, Bill. We're going to be a little below normal, but it's going to come with extreme temperature swings. And snowfall should be a little above normal again. Normal Lexington is about 15 inches. Last year we had 22, and I think we can do that a little bit better in the years that I look at that have been similar. There you see 2020, 2008 is on there, 2000, 2010, and then all the way back to 1995.
You know, snow or rain gives you some pretty good guideposts, but it's that in-between that we love to avoid if we can. It seems often going in, say, February, you begin to get those situations where we're riding a temperature line.
Yeah, you talk about ice in Kentucky now, and you know, we've had, up until last year, we had two major ice storms of record. You had 2003, the President's Day weekend ice storm that devastated Lexington. You had the one in late January of 2009 that impacted more central and especially western Kentucky.
Yes.
Well, now the ice storm of record has been supplanted by three ice storms that we had in a 10-day span back in this February.
That was rough.
That was centered central and eastern Kentucky. For eastern Kentucky, that's probably the worst ice storm they've ever had into that part of the state.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was tough.
It really was.
Even around here, what we had going on.
Yeah, unprecedented to have three ice storms in a row like that. It's unprecedented to have two in a winter, let alone three in a week.
If people want to see more about your forecast, I know obviously you have your blog, and you can go to our website, WKYT.com.
WKYT.com will have it all. There will be something on Facebook. There is something on Facebook right now for people to go and click on, and you could watch that and kind of get an idea of the winter forecast. Now, granted, we're talking about a 3 or 4 month forecast here, so it's not going to work out perfectly by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just trying to give folks a general guideline of where things may go this year.
We got you. There's a caveat, right?
There's always a
Disclaimer.
caveat. There's always a caveat. That's right.
You and I will be seeing a lot more of each other here starting Monday, November 29th. And what some people may not remember is we've worked together quite a bit before.
Long time. You know, not all, we did the noon and the 5:30 for what, 7, 8 years?
Late 90s and early 2000s.
And then we hit the morning show for a couple of years, me, you, and Barbara.
Shook that up for a little bit.
We did. We called ourselves the B team. It was Bryant, Bailey.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we had a great time on that. So this isn't our first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination.
But it will be fun. You know, hats off to the tremendous career of Sam Dick. I mean, it's been fun to reminisce with him and talk about all of the great stories. But we had a good time around here, all as friends, and people should know that. You know?
Yeah, right. It really is like a family atmosphere around here, though. I mean, you've got folks that are, you know, that don't overlap in terms of their work, but it doesn't matter. We're all still friends. We all still know each other. We all still will, you know, like me and you through the years, even though we haven't been on the same shift for a while, we still will text at random times during the day. And I'll forget, hey, it's 7 o'clock and oh wait, Bill's asleep.
And I see it at 3 o'clock, and sometimes you're still awake.
Right, exactly. I'm trying to get a blog out at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes.
Our viewers also should remember we do a lot of news over on the CW Lexington.
Yes.
We have a 6:30 newscast. We'll be doing that, and Buzz Baker will, you know, come in and rile things up as well.
Yeah, and we're going to add to that.
Yes.
Stay tuned for that coming January 1.
Let's say it is public, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock on the CW is coming.
So we'll have that. Yeah. We'll have fun then.
We're going to be on that as well, and then so you'll get a full hour and a half of me, Bill, and Amber. 10 and then 11.
How exciting, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, seriously, that's and I don't mind adding shows because if we're here, it might as well work.
That's right, and it will be fun, and look forward to it.
To quote my old friend Brian Collins, they still got to pay us the same.
We don't count the words.
That's right.
All right, Chris, a fun look at the update, and we'll see you soon. And we hope you'll stay with us in just a moment. We'll be back with Greta Van Susteren. Welcome back. A big week for Pfizer and the fight against COVID. The FDA and the CDC could be signing off on Pfizer's COVID booster shots for all adults. Pfizer is also seeking emergency authorization for its COVID antiviral pill, a treatment pill. The Biden administration is purchasing 10 million courses of that drug. But Pfizer is making sure other parts of the world have access too. Our chief national political analyst, Greta Van Susteren, has the details.
Hello, I'm Greta Van Susteren, and here's your full court fast break. Pfizer making its new COVID pill Paxlovid more available across the globe. This week, the pharmaceutical giant signing an agreement with the UN-backed Medicines Patent Pool. The nonprofit licenses medicine for low and middle income nations. This deal allows generic companies to make the antiviral medicine for 95 countries. That could cover more than 50% of the world population. Pfizer is waiving Paxlovid patent royalties in every country covered by the agreement, while COVID remains classified as a public health emergency. And even after the emergency, Pfizer says it will not receive Paxlovid royalties in low-income countries. Pfizer is already manufacturing this pill, but remember, the drug has not been authorized yet. The company applied for FDA emergency use authorization Tuesday. It says its pill cuts the risk of hospitalization and death by nearly 90% in patients who took it within 3 days of symptom onset. And what about Merck's COVID pill, Molnupiravir? On November 30th, an FDA advisory committee will consider it for emergency use authorization. Data shows Merck's pill reduces the risk of hospitalization and death by roughly 50% in adults with mild to moderate COVID cases. Want more Full Court Press? Tune in Sundays. We bring politics home, covering the national stories that impact you.
And remember that you can catch Full Court Press with Greta Van Susteren this morning at 11:30 on WKYT. Well, that's Kentucky Newsmakers. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you this week on WKYT News. You make it a good Thanksgiving week ahead.